Today, Jeff Bezos announcing he's going to space. It'll be his rocket company's first crewed space flight ever, and it's set for takeoff next month. The Treasury Secretary isn't worried multi-trillion-dollar spending proposals will cause prices to rise, and says it could even be a good thing if they do. And the new G7 tax deal is designed to make the biggest companies like Amazon, Google, and Facebook pay more taxes. But now experts say Amazon might get off the hook. That and much more, coming up in NTD Business. Good evening, great to have you with us. Amazon's boss is going to space. Jeff Bezos says he'll be on the first crewed flight aboard his Blue Origin rocket.
You see the Earth from space, it changes you. It changes your relationship with this planet, with humanity. It's one Earth. I want to go on this flight because it's a thing I've wanted to do all my life. It's an adventure. It's a big deal for me.
The 59-foot rocket ship is expected to reach more than 60 miles above Earth. The flight will take around 11 minutes. Apparently, Bezos' younger brother, Mark Bezos, will also be one of the 6 on board. One other seat will go to the winner of a month-long auction that's currently still in progress. The bidding is now more than $2.8 million. The flight is set for July 20th. And some Apple employees are pushing back against returning to the office. A group sent a letter to the CEO saying they want a more flexible approach instead of being forced to come in at least 3 days a week. NTD's Phil Zoe reports.
Some Apple workers are unhappy about returning to work in person. They want more flexibility, but Apple says working in person is important. People miss the energy and creativity of working together as a team.
Definitely prefer being in person in the office.
Oh, absolutely office. It's nice to be with coworkers again.
Apple says workers need to be back in the office at least 3 days a week starting September.
I would prefer to be around other people and having those conversations and doing it in person because it makes it easier that way too.
Apple says in-person meetings are more effective than remote working.
Way more fun. It's easier to get your work done when you kind of have to. It's fun to run into people as you're getting a snack or you get that human interaction.
Feeling more engaged with people I work with has been really good.
But some workers at Apple say the policy forces them to choose between the company or their family and health.
Working remotely gives people the chance to rest and find time with family, so I think that's great.
An internal letter obtained by The Verge claims some workers have quit because of the policy change.
Now being told you have to go back to the Bay Area or New York, where it's after you kind of bought a house or your kids started a school or something, seems tough.
It's what your employer says, you know? If you want to work remotely and they say you have to come back to the office, then I guess you have to, because that's your job.
The letter started from a Slack channel with about 3,000 members. About 80 people got involved with writing the letter. Other companies like Google is doing the same. They want staff back in the office for at least 3 days in a week, starting September. Phil Zoe, NTD News, New York.
And Tesla is scrapping a supercar it promised even before it goes on sale. Yesterday, Elon Musk tweeted that the Model S Plaid Plus is cancelled. He says there's no need for the Plaid Plus because the standard Plaid is just so good. The Plus was supposed to go farther on a single charge than the standard version and would have cost about $30,000 more. The Plaid Plus and even the standard model Plaid S Plaid were touted as the fastest mass-produced cars ever. And worrying news for businesses impacted by the global microchip shortage. Local media report a semiconductor factory in Taiwan called Qingyuan Electronics has resumed some operations after a CCP virus outbreak, but it was forced to close one facility over the weekend. Taiwan is critical for global chip production. The company reported 195 virus cases among more than 7,000 employees. Most of the positive cases were seemingly from foreign workers living in dormitories. But 2,100 foreign workers are now under a 14-day quarantine with pay. Only Taiwanese workers are allowed to enter the production lines. The factory, about 60 miles from the capital, Taipei, provides semiconductor testing and packaging services, and 2 other semiconductor factories nearby are also being impacted by outbreaks. And a banking app backed by Mark Cuban called Dave is going public through a SPAC. It was originally created to help people avoid overdraft fees, but it can help you with other money challenges too. NTD's Colin Fredrickson has more.
Mark Cuban-backed banking app Dave plans to go public through a SPAC merger. SPACs are publicly listed shell companies that buy private firms, taking them public while avoiding the IPO process.
It's incredibly exciting. The company now has the resources to become a fundamental banking solution for people. This company can now help you manage your entire financial life, start to finish.
Dave helps you with money-related challenges with a variety of tools, such as celebrating payday earlier by receiving your direct deposit 2 days in advance, or giving you side hustle leads in a variety of categories. For example, if you want to work from home, you may consider working with Shipt, Fiverr, or Upwork. And Dave's original feature is overdraft avoidance. Banks collected around $12.4 billion in overdraft fees in 2020.
It is using technology to mine your data to warn you. It's like short-term cash flow forecasts and warn you if you're in danger of overdrafting your account, should you be linking another bank account. So
the SPAC merging with Dave is VPC Impact Acquisition Holdings 3, owned by Chicago-based Victory Park Capital. Other investors include Tiger Global Management, Wellington Management, and Corbin Capital Partners. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
The stocks clawed back much of their early losses today. They ended pretty mixed for the day. The Dow fell 126 points, about 1/3%. S&P 500 lost just 3 points. The Nasdaq added 67 points today, about 0.5%. Real estate led the gainers in the S&P 500, while materials suffered the largest percentage drop. Treasury yields, though, were pretty stable today. The 10-year Treasury yield held at 1.57%. Crude oil prices, again, little changed. Not much happening. And former President Trump says Bitcoin seems like a scam. He wants the US dollar to remain the world's reserve currency, not a cryptocurrency. Here's NTD's Patrick Hayden on the former president's remarks.
Former President Trump knocked Bitcoin Monday during an interview with Fox Business.
Bitcoin, it just seems like a scam. You don't like it because it's another currency competing against the dollar. Essentially, it's a currency competing against the dollar. I want the dollar to be the currency of the world.
After his comments, Bitcoin prices dropped. This comes just days after El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele said he wants to make Bitcoin legal tender in the country. About a quarter of El Salvador's citizens live in the United States. And last year, despite the pandemic, they sent home more than $6 billion in remittances. Bukele claims Bitcoin is a better way to send money to his country from the US. One crypto expert can't see how that would work.
That's something that's being claimed. I'm not seeing any evidence that that's actually going to work that way or happen.
Gerard says the cryptocurrency case fails when you have two conversions.
If American El Salvadorians are sending US dollars over, then they'll want them to be received as US dollars. There's no reason to change them into Bitcoins and back to get them there.
He says we don't actually have any of the details yet to assess whether Bitcoin can be of any use in El Salvador.
Bukele has a style of government where he tries to keep people on their toes. He does very seat of his pants governance. Now, he can do this because he's really popular. He has very high approval rating.
He says El Salvador has a massive deficit to fund, and they can't print money because the US dollar is the country's legal tender currency. Patrick Hayden, NTD News.
The Treasury Secretary says she's not worried about government spending causing inflation, and she says it could even be a good thing. Secretary Yellen says if rising prices force the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates, that could be good for the society. She told Bloomberg policymakers have been fighting low interest rates for a decade, and so if they went a little higher, that would be good. The Fed cut rates to near zero at the beginning of the pandemic, and trillions of dollars have been injected into the economy since then. Many blame this for the rising prices we're seeing. But Yellen says the recent price hikes are just temporary, and spending like the multi-trillion-dollar proposed infrastructure plan won't lead to persistently high inflation. Yellen expects inflation to stay at around 3% for the year, overshooting the Fed's target of an average 2%. An acclaimed economist and author, Professor Robert Janetsky, he agrees the Fed should raise rates to try to tame inflation, but says that it needs to act now, not later. But so if Yellen can see the benefits of a higher rate environment and other experts can too, do we really need to wait until prices rise or money loses value before raising rates?
I'm afraid they do, because the people who are in charge now of our policies, they believe two things. First of all, they believe that you can print money so long as there is any unemployment at all. You can print more money, stimulate the economy, and you're not going to have negative effects. That flies in the face of everything that we've seen throughout history. I published a book several years ago, Rich Nation, Poor Nation, where I went back through all of our history and looked at every time we've had the type of policies we have right now. They're called progressive economic policies. They were originally called progressive policies when they were first introduced back in the 19-teens. And they were very proud of them, but they caused such chaos in terms of higher inflation, eroding the value of people's incomes, eroding real wages. They caused such pain that they dropped the term progressive and they started calling them liberal policies. And then when liberal policies had the same effect, higher inflation, stagnant growth, low wages, they changed the name again. They went back to progressive, figuring that there aren't too many people from 19-teens that are still around that would remember that. Well, if you look at history, it's very clear you should be thinking about those things. And the results have never been positive. So you get the same set of policies, you somehow expect different results. It's not going to happen.
Who do you think has the, I don't want to say blame, but who has the responsibility here? We have the government, of course, looking for bigger packages, infrastructure packages, different welfare packages we see, but we also have the Federal Reserve who are, in a sense, funding it or at least providing the funds for it. Who does the responsibility fall on to make the decision on rates or inflation?
Well, the main responsibility is the Fed. And unfortunately, the Fed and the administration right now are right on the same policy wavelength. They both believe that there is not enough money in the system, that we could just continue to print more and more. They're looking at this being temporary, this current inflationary blow-up, and part of it will be temporary, probably will ease off a little toward the end of the year. But then I expect it to continue and to just continue to rise. So it's something that I believe people have to protect themselves again. If they were familiar with history, they would have the sort of confidence that I have that you should be protecting yourself. And how do you protect yourself? Well, one thing is you avoid buying long-term bonds. With interest rates now at maybe 1.5%, a little more than that on treasuries, I believe that they actually should be at 4%. Once the inflation hits, it quickly becomes too late to get out because everyone wants to get out at the same time, and the rates just skyrocket higher. And if there is 10% inflation, the Fed will then start to raise interest rates. And by the time they raise them very aggressively, it will be time for the next recession.
So on that point, maybe you can explain. So Secretary Yellen, she wants us to push ahead with these infrastructure bills. She says even if there's inflation, we can just raise rates. It's a positive thing. What happens if they go ahead with these bills, they print all the money, they put it into the system, and then the Fed doesn't raise rates for whatever reason? It just decides not to.
Well, then you have hyperinflation. Then that's what happened in the Weimar Republic in Germany when your money became worthless. It's what's happened in Venezuela. So you may think as a policymaker that you're going to control things, but if you're not going to at some point bear a responsible policy by limiting the amount of funds going into the system and basically end up creating a recession. If you're not going to do that, you end up with hyperinflation and an even worse downturn in the economy because money isn't worth anything and people start to barter, and it's just a highly destructive type of policy. So eventually, even the Federal Reserve will have to admit they made a mistake. That's what they've done in the past. They will have to change their policy. And usually what happens is the public also realizes that this has been a terrible mistake in policy, and they kick the people out who are responsible for the mistake. And so we have a major change in the political landscape. and we start to see more responsible policies. And if history is a guide, we then start a longer-term economic recovery. So it's a sad fact of history that we keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again. But that's what the history is.
Robert Janetsky. And G7 nations reached a historic deal that's supposed to close loopholes on tax avoidance. Now experts are raising some concerns. They say Amazon might still be able to escape paying more taxes. NTD's Yellen has more.
G7 nations just reached a deal on global tax reform, but Amazon could dodge the bullet. That's unless G7 leaders close a large loophole in the deal. The UK finance minister says the deal is aimed at making the tax system a better fit for the global digital age.
What countries are working towards is figuring out ways to harmonize international tax rules so there aren't pockets of avoidance activity.
And U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said it will end the race to the bottom in corporate taxation and it will level the playing field for business. Currently, big tech companies like Apple, Microsoft, Google, and Facebook can avoid taxes by shifting their profits to subsidiaries in low-tax countries like Luxembourg, Bermuda, and Ireland. Amazon last year experienced record sales in Europe, but it didn't pay corporate taxes to Luxembourg because its headquarters there reported $1.4 billion loss.
These low-tax jurisdictions are being used as a way to finance, in a corporate structure, to finance investments elsewhere.
The historic agreement between the Group of Seven aims to tackle this loophole, but expert analysis shows Amazon might not be captured by the deal. Daniel Bunn, vice president of global projects for the Tax Foundation, says that defining subsets for companies is difficult. That means loopholes are being built into the plan.
Maybe we could sell off part of our business, have lower overall sales. Maybe we could merge with a less profitable business to bring our average total profitability down. It's a really complicated kind of set of issues.
And in Amazon's case, he says the e-commerce giant has a different business model than some of the companies being targeted. Pillar 1 of the G7 deal is designed to make multinational companies pay taxes, not only where they are based, but also where they operate. But it would only apply to companies whose profit margin exceeds 10%. That's a threshold that Amazon does not hit, partly because it reinvests heavily. The second pillar that makes up the plan will set a global minimum corporate tax of at least 15%, operated on a country-by-country basis. Yellen assured Reuters that Facebook and Amazon both would be covered. Sources say that while the G7 sealed an overarching agreement, details still need to be worked out. Evelyn Lee, NTD News.
And Google says it will change its global ad practices after France hit it with a huge fine over its online ad dominance. It's the first time Google has bowed to antitrust pressure. NTD's Patrick Hayden has more on this landmark case.
French regulators have fined Google nearly $270 million. The Wall Street Journal reports the fine is for anti-competitive behavior in the digital advertising space. France's antitrust watchdog says Google abused its market power.
It is a world first for the antitrust world.
News Corp and two other media groups logged a complaint in 2019, which triggered the investigation. The regulator said Monday that as well as the fine, Google has committed to operational changes. This includes making it easier for competitors to use its online ad services. France's antitrust chief said it's the first decision in the world focusing on the complex algorithmic auction processes.
So this is the first decision in the world that really deals with how online advertising works for the display part of online advertising, which are all the different publicity that we see on websites and also on apps that you can use on your smartphone.
The case marks the first time ever that Google has entered into an antitrust settlement. Google did not comment on the case itself, but directed NTD to the changes it's making to its ads platform. Its legal director in France says these platform changes are being tested for broader use, including some on a global scale. Patrick Hayden, NTD News.
And shares of drug maker Biogen jumped today after the Food and Drug Administration approved its drug that treats Alzheimer's disease. It's the first federally approved Alzheimer's treatment in 18 years. Regulators say Aduhelm will treat more than just the symptoms of Alzheimer's like insomnia and anxiety, but also deals directly with the underlying disease and the memory loss it causes. The New York Post says doctors don't think it could treat all patients like those where the disease has advanced too far, but whether the drug is actually effective has been a point of controversy too. Health professionals don't think there's enough proof that it works, and advisors to the FDA also don't think the drug deserves such positive marks. The FDA can still take back its approval if clinical trials don't show the drug works. And still to come this evening. Toy maker Mattel is asking you not to use some of its baby rockers. It's after several reports of infant deaths. And can you learn to code without a computer? Some in West Africa are doing just that so they can find job opportunities around the world. And more after this short break.
Every once in a while, something comes along so masterful, it leaves you in awe. So inspiring, it changes your life. So beautiful, you wish it would never end. When that happens, it's something not to be missed. Shen Yun, coming to the Palace Theater, June 26th and 27th. Tickets at shenyun.com/Stamford.
Why are millions of Americans moving their money into gold and silver? It's simple. The world has never been more unpredictable. The biggest economic crisis we've faced since 2008, and a government that's about to print trillions and trillions of dollars. That's why so many Americans are turning to gold and silver to protect their nest egg. American Hartford Gold is a trusted name to help families to safeguard their wealth. With an A+ rating from the BBB and 5-star ratings on the biggest review websites like Trustpilot and Google, American Hartford Gold can help you convert any qualifying IRA or 401k into precious metals. Or they'll help you to easily purchase physical gold and silver and deliver straight to your doorstep. Learn how you can protect your wealth with gold and silver today. Get this free 2021 information guide. Call 866-893-1493 or text TV to 65532.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm going to pass the savings directly on to you. For example, you get my 6-piece towel sets, regular $109.99, now only $44.98, or MyPillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
Toy maker Mattel says it's recalling some models of Fisher-Price baby rockers following reports of 4 infant deaths. The toy maker says there's risk of suffocation and the products shouldn't be used. Mattel says it's recalling the 4-in-1 Rock and Glide soothers and the 2-in-1 Soothe and Play gliders. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission reports infants aged 11 weeks to 2 months died on the soothers between April 29th and February 2020. They were reportedly placed on their backs and later found on their stomachs. The company says the fatalities all occurred on the soothers. About 120,000 of them were sold between January 2014 and December 2020. Fisher-Price will offer a refund for those models. And Dollywood is planning to open a new resort in 2023. Dolly Parton's theme park in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee is expanding with the Heartsong Lodge and Resort. It'll be located next to the existing Dreammore Resort and Spa, and the 5-story lodge will include more than 300 guest rooms, indoor-outdoor pools, and a fire pit, and a 26,000 square foot meeting space. This is the first project in a $500 million investment plan over the next 10 years. Dollywood opened in 1986, and about 3 million people visit the theme park and water park every year. And job opportunities are scarce in Nigeria, prompting some to seek global opportunities by learning to code, even if they don't have a laptop. NTD's Colin Fredrickson reports.
In a Lagos classroom, Samuel Anyele is teaching aspiring software developers, even if they don't own a laptop. They're learning how to code using their mobile phones.
In the environment where we live in, there are more people with access to mobile phones than with PCs. So by teaching them how to code on their mobile phones, we're effectively giving them a tool to work, whether they have a PC or not.
Job opportunities are scarce in Africa's most populous country. 2/3 of people aged 15 to 34 are either unemployed or underemployed. Coding skills are seen by many young Nigerians as a way to earn money from clients based anywhere in the world. One of Anyele's students is Chinonso Okafor.
And there was no light and my laptop was down, so I had to move those folders into my phone and continue on my phone.
He now builds websites and says using his phone means he can keep working for his clients when the electricity cuts out. According to Anyele, a lot of people want to learn tech skills but don't have the resources. In some schools, he says, students are still writing code on paper. His is one of the many companies that have sprung up to teach Nigerians how to code. Anyele runs free classes for beginners and charges $210 for courses aimed at professionals. His classroom is in Yaba, a Lagos suburb commonly referred to as Nigeria's Silicon Valley. It's a place where software developers dream of making it big. Last year, tech giant Stripe bought Nigerian fintech firm Paystack for $200 million. And local payments company Flutterwave was valued at $1 billion. It shows just what is possible for tech in the country. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
Incredible. As the latest business updates for today, you can still catch NTD Evening News with Stephanie Cox. That's at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. For NTD Business, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
We have a new channel. Subscribe to us on YouTube at NTD News. Get the highlights of our news broadcast and the most important headlines that we curate especially for you.
Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.